Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Connie Carlisle with VRM Intel, and today we have with us Corinne Oki, who is the Vice President of Client Experience with Breezeway, and she is here to present to you the Breezeway Masterclass. So, Corinne, go ahead anytime you're ready.
Awesome. Thanks, Connie. I'm really excited to be chatting with everybody today. So that you are not looking at my face while we're doing this, I'm going to go ahead and shut the video off here and share my screen with everyone so that you're able to see that. We'll go ahead and make that large. So appreciate everybody jumping in today to learn a little bit more Breezeway. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, about the company, what we're going to cover today. And from there, we'll just dig right everything. So, as Connie said, my name is Corinne Oki. I'm with Breezeway. I've been with our organization now for just over 3 years, and been in the vacation rental industry since about 2008. Been about 12 years. Been able to work with a lot of folks who are watching this video today. We're really excited to be participating, and I'm really looking forward to kind of giving you a quick look at what we're doing at Breezeway. For those of you who don't know, Breezeway is a property care and service platform that's focused specifically on the back of house operations and the work that needs to be done to actually maintain and ensure that those properties are being cared for to the level with which they should be, and also are ready for those guests when they come into stay with you. So our management team has a really deep connection to this industry, and having been in the industry for more than 15 years. And one of the reasons that created Breezeway was really because as you started to look at the end, one of the things that was missing was some really deep functionality as it pertained to operations. So there's some really great tools out there for from property management systems for reservations and marketing and distribution and accounting and all that part of the business. But there's not as deep functionality as it pertains to operations as we think is really important, especially because when you look at some surveys that are out there, 1 in 3 property manager actually says that operations is the hardest part of their business. There are so many moving pieces to property management and specifically vacation rental management. And so our goal as we talk about operations over the next 45 minutes is to really look and see where are there some easy places that you can improve your process that will enable you to maximize and drive efficiency in that part of the business. Let's dig into what we are. As I mentioned, we're an operations and service, a property care and optimization platform, really focused on that operational business. So we're specifically in about 6 categories. And just to give you a little of what this is going to look like, we're going to about these categories, sort of important. We're going to dig into each one of them. And then towards the end of this conversation, actually go out to the Breezeway system so that you can see that in real life and think about how that could apply to your business. Also important to note that this masterclass is geared towards really anyone who is doing this part of the business or has interest in this part of the business. Some of the things that we're going to look at here are going to be really applicable for existing Breezeway users. Other things we're going to be looking at are going to be things that are up and coming and going to be added to the system. But the goal here is that whether or not you're very familiar with Breezeway or whether you've never logged into the system, you're going to be able to take something out of this and use that in your business as you consider and think about how you can improve your operations. So with that in mind, let's jump right into it. Let's look at the first one with this, which is task automation. This, if you think about how you handle your workload and the assignment of your workload and who is doing it and visibility into what is being done and is it being done correctly, there are likely a lot of emails, phone calls, WhatsApp, whatever channels you may be using to manage that are being utilized to actually execute on that work. So whether this is scheduling a clean getting an arrival inspection, addressing a maintenance issue that's identified by one of the other team members who's in the field, or maybe reported from a guest saying, manual effort that goes coordinating that. So talk a little bit more about task automation, and how that impacts your operational kind of workload. We're also going to talk about quality assurance. In many instances, unless you're in a market where there is no competition, there are a lot of options for people, whether it's those folks who are looking to book a vacation with you, those owners who are looking to find someone to manage their home, and the promise that you make to these people, whether it's the guest or the owner, is really important. And one of those falls to your brand standards, how you do things, what your guests can expect, the level of service that you provide to your clients, whether those again are either your owners or your guests. So that's really important. But one of the challenges is that, specifically if you're a business that maybe doesn't do inspections, how are you, confident that those brand standards are actually, how do you know that someone did it to do that one thing that's important to your organization? So having information and assurance, and being able to know what your team is doing and give them the tools that they need to be able to do that is incredibly important. About this a few minutes ago, your owner relations. This is core to your business, right? Without these homeowners, you don't have properties to rent. So you can't welcome those guests in there. Those homeowners likely made a really educated decision when they chose to come to your organization and have you represent their home and manage it and be their eyes and ears on the ground. It's a unique position that property managers are in, to be able to be that boots on the ground and offer that local service. And it's important to be able to actually stick to the experience that you promise to those homeowners. Part of that falls into asset management and how you're actually maintaining the home, what you know about the home. Part of that also happens with how you communicate with guests. So jumping down to that SMS piece, right? Like, how are you talking to your guests? How many folks in the room are texting their guests? How many people are emailing or messaging with their homeowners? Thinking about how you do it and how easy you make this for folks to interact with you is really important. And then the last point here that falls under Breezeway is that safety and compliance piece. Guys, this is incredibly important, not only in light of what's going on currently with the health pandemic in the world, but in general. And I think something that a lot of guests and owners probably take for granted to an extent, right? They aren't asking, did you do all of these things? Because they're under the assumption that they're renting this space from you, and all of these safety protocols have actually been in place. And I think, unfortunately, that's not always something that is actually happening. Not because people don't want it to be happening, but just because there are a lot of moving parts to tracking that, to making sure that it's actually done. So part of what we're doing at Breezeway, we actually, some of you may know Justin Ford. We hired him last fall as our director of safety and certification at Breezeway. And one of the things that he's doing is he's working with property managers to develop safety programs, and then actually train your staff so that they can execute these programs, because this is such an important piece of the industry and how we continue to evolve. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of what Breezeway is. I've shared this with you, but I don't want you to have to take it just from me. So let's look about what actually was done in Breezeway's system. So as I mentioned, we are focused all on back of house. So cleanings, inspections, maintenance, whether that's preventative maintenance. We recently launched our messaging product, which is that guest communication via SMS. We've got the safety product, but all of that goes to making sure that these homes are ready for folks to stay with you. So if we look at this information that you're seeing here on the screen, these are just information that was business that was conducted within Breezeway last year in 2019. 1.1 million tasks were completed through the system. So these may be cleans, they may be deep cleans, they may be arrival inspections, they may be secure and lockups, they may be preventative maintenance that's being completed, but 1.1 million tasks going through that system, logging more than 150,000 hours of work through Breezeway system, and then also sending SMS messages. So again, this is something we talked about on the previous slide. We launched our messaging product in October, mid-October of 2019. So this 56,000 text messages that you're seeing here, this is over a 2.5 month time frame. So 56,000 interactions with guests. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means and how that relates to your business as we get into that. But just think about that, 56,000 messages to guests and 1.1 million tasks. That's a lot of work that's being done. And a lot of that work, right, starts with scheduling and assigning the workload to the team that you are working with. So I would say this is probably arguably one of the most difficult parts of operations. A lot of times when we talk to clients, they kind of compare the scheduling and assigning of work to a big old game of Jenga. Things are moving and you think you have it all figured out, and then one thing changes and you've got to figure the whole thing out again. There's a lot of last minute reservations. There are a lot of changes to reservations and things that just come up that are beyond our control. So you may go to bed on Friday thinking, great, we've got the schedule set for Saturday, only to wake up and see that you've gotten a bunch of reservations overnight. And that's a good thing, of course, but it means you have to recalibrate that schedule. So as we start to think about that, there's a couple things that I just want to get out of the way as we start. One being on all of these slides that we're going to go through, you're going to see maybe a new option and a what's next option. It's worth noting that when I'm recording this today, this is actually I guess early April. So as we start to think about things that I talk about that are coming, know that if you're watching this in August, that may have already been released. And so, we'd be happy to talk you through that if that's the case. The other thing that I want to talk about is just a little bit about how the scheduling and assigning of work goes. A lot of times when we talk with prospective clients, they mention, hey, we're using this system and this is where we're putting all of our reservations. And that's fantastic. We're not asking that you actually duplicate that effort. We at Breezeway have integrations with more than 20 different property management systems. So as you're making reservations in your PMS, those reservations are pushing over to Breezeway automatically. So as reservations are changing, extending, canceling, whether they're new reservations that are being made, those are consistently updating into Breezeway system automatically with no effort on your part. We also have automated scheduling, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but automated scheduling, which essentially allows you to say, hey, here's what we do on a checkout versus a back-to-back versus a check-in. Here's what we do if it's an owner versus if it's a guest. And so we set up those automated rules, and then as those reservations are coming in, that work is being automatically placed on the calendar. But one of the things that I want to talk a little bit more about here specifically is the user scheduling piece of functionality. So user scheduling is actually going to allow you to say, hey, Corinne only works 6 hours on this day and 8 hours the next day, or 2 hours the following day. And so as you're scheduling and you're assigning and balancing that workload out, you can leverage our time and rate functionality, which allows you to say, when we do an arrival inspection at this property, it takes 30 minutes versus a different property where it takes 45 minutes or an hour. So that as you're making that schedule and you're planning what my day looks like, you're doing so with some good information to make sure that I'm not being overloaded and we can actually execute on all of the work that needs to be done. And again, you're setting this per task, per property, and so you're not having to kind of make some generalizations in there. The other piece of this is this functionality that we have in place called accept and decline. So for some folks, they may work with contract companies and maybe they have an external cleaning partner that they use. And so you can't exactly tell them, you've got to do this at this time. You need them to actually accept that work and confirm that they're going to do it. So through the accept and decline feature, you can actually give them a certain amount of time to do that, give them the ability as an individual, the opportunity to accept or decline that work, and it doesn't apply across your entire your entire users, all of your users in Breezeway. Now, that is great. Obviously, it makes it really easy to work with folks, whether they're internal, whether they're external. Some of the new things that we've recently released is dynamic scheduling. So if you have a reservation that is extended or they've shortened it by a day or maybe canceled altogether, as those reservations are being adjusted, so too is the workload that's been scheduled. And so that is automatically updating to align with what actually needs to be going on. And that creates a way to really reduce the work that you or someone in your office actually have to do to manage and oversee that schedule. Another thing that we recently released was default templates at the user level. So what that means is, let's think about a scenario in which you do landscaping, and that's something that you do every week on Tuesday. And so every time you assign that landscaping work in Breezeway, it needs to go to John, who is the landscaper. So you can set that up so that when that particular work is assigned, it's going to the right people. Also, one of the other things, and this sort of goes in line with the example of the landscaping, but think about maybe from like a pool or a hot tub perspective. Some of your properties have them, some of them don't. So one of the things that the team is actively working on right now is advanced scheduling rules. So being able to get really granular in your rules to say, if there typically, right, if there is a property attribute or a specific add-on or flag on this reservation, we want to assign something different than our standards. So let's say that there is a pool and there needs to be a pool service. So if the property has a pool, in addition to what we do on every arrival or on every checkout, also schedule a pool service. So you can get really granular with that that scheduling functionality. And again, if you have a pet or you have a hot tub, they've paid to have the hot tub heated, you can set up those appropriate rules there using those advanced scheduling rules that we're working on. The other thing, some folks use a system that doesn't have a direct integration with Breezeway, so we work with you in other ways. This reservation uploader that the team is working on actually will allow you to supplement what we know about your bookings so that you're able to then say, hey, this needs a pool heat, or they paid for this. So you can actually add additional items to reservations and supplement those through the reservation uploader. Assigning the work, obviously just one part of the challenge here. Then it's about completing the work in the field. Actually not pretty, it's incredibly important that this work in the field is done correctly. This links back to the brand standards. It links back to kind of confirmation and accountability and understanding of what's going on. So I think three of the biggest things here, specifically as we think about completing the work in the field, is the ability to use our mobile app. So at Breezeway, we've created a mobile app that is available on both Android and Apple devices. Which is fantastic. So it makes it really easy for you to use. Our site is also completely responsive. So if you are not using the app and you're using your mobile web on your phone or the internet on your phone, that's not a problem. You can use that. Now, that being said, if you are using the mobile app, in addition to being able to do that, you also have offline functionality. So one of the things that comes up a lot when we talk with managers, specifically those folks who are in maybe a more rural area or don't have great cell or connectivity in their market, you are in many instances operating in vacation destinations, and folks should be coming in there to relax. So that's something that we hear a lot. The offline functionality will actually enable your team to use the app even if they don't have any connectivity. So they can go through and complete their job. And then as they come back to the office or they go to the next house and log into that Wi-Fi, all of the work that they just did will sync up. And that becomes really important. Another example I often give is, let's say you've got a housekeeper who maybe is running low on battery on their phone and they want to go into airplane mode to conserve their battery life. They can do that. And then when they come out of airplane mode, everything's going to sync up. The other thing is thinking about, how you're communicating with your team when they're out in the field. I talked about this a little bit earlier: text, emails, phone calls, um, however many ways you are communicating with the team. It's all it's all offline. So there's not a very clear way to see exactly what the conversation about this clean was without scrolling through and looking at notes. So Breezeway system has a comments feature that allows you to communicate with your team in the field and also for them to communicate with you. Everything's tied then to that task so that you can actually go about through and review those down the line if you need to come back and understand why a decision was made, or why perhaps you sent another housekeeper over to help because it was late in the day. You'd be able to look right at that job and see exactly what happened there. The other thing that is super interesting and something that can be troublesome from the field for a lot of people is sort of monitoring what's being used, right? Are we replacing items? Are we replenishing them? Where is that going? And how does that get tracked? So it could be something as simple as like, replacing, not replacing, but replenishing hand soap in a bathroom, or replacing coffee makers or batteries, or whatever the case is. You, I'm sure, have a ton of options here where you're thinking, gosh, it would be great to be able to know exactly who used it in what house when. The supply tracking and management functionality that the system offers will allow you to do that. So you can upload a list including costs and what can be used from the field. The team can actually go ahead and track that, and then you're able to export that out to see exactly what was used when and by whom and which properties. Similarly, this isn't really supplies related, but you can also track costs. So if I have to go to Home Depot and buy something, I can do that, and that's all going to be live within the system so that you can view that and export that information. Now, I do want to be really clear, that is not a true, it's not a full scale like inventory program with the supplies management, but it gives you a great way to at least capture that information and then export it out. I will tell you that we are going to be working on some inventory functionality later in the year, which is really exciting. But what we have new as it pertains to completing work in the field is our magic link. So I always say this, I don't know, I should probably ask, but I don't know if it's really called a magic link or if that's just what our developers told me. But it basically means that if you have somebody that you work with every once in a while, maybe it's a pest control, or it's one particular plumber who's kind of your backup plumber, and they don't necessarily want to download Breezeway to have or create an account in the system. Through that magic link, you can actually assign them work. They'll be able to do it right from the mobile web, and you'll still have all of the visibility as if they were using the app or actually had an account. So that makes it really easy to work with some folks who may not otherwise create an account. And then the next thing, and you guys are actually, exciting times, going to get to see a sneak peek of this, the ability to create and assign tasks from the app. So this mobile app that we've talked about right now is really geared towards you've been assigned work and you want to do it in the field. This functionality that we're building here will be used a lot for like an administrator or a supervisor who is out in the field and they want to actually create a task directly from the app and assign that out to someone or assign it to themselves. So you guys are going to get to see a sneak peek of that here in just a few minutes. But before we go into the actual site, I also wanted to talk with you quickly about how you're driving transparency from the office or from wherever you may be. Two things, as we've seen over the last few weeks, a lot more remote work is being done today than it was 6 weeks ago. So having visibility and understanding exactly where everybody is, what they're doing, being able to communicate and see what's going on is really important. Part of that can be accomplished today through our updated property dashboard. That's a new update that we recently put out. We've always had a dashboard, But we took a lot of feedback from our clients and added a lot more information to make that a bit more robust and give you a bit more visibility into what's going on there. Along with that, we also introduced saved views. So if you have a specific subset of properties that you want to be able to see quickly, maybe you're in the Outer Banks and you have properties in Corolla and down in Kill Devil Hills, you can actually separate those out so that you can really quickly see exactly what's going on in each of those areas without having to use a lot of filters. And the other thing that I think is pretty interesting, right, is we're tracking how long the work takes. You can see that you've said this job should take 3 hours, but I am consistently completing that job in 2 hours. So you can really find some efficiency gains there. Maybe we've extended and added too long of a time for that clean. Maybe it doesn't actually take as long as it used to, or it's not something that needs to a 4-hour clean. By understanding that, you can kind of do a couple of things. One, maybe you need to adjust piece rate. Two, maybe you need to adjust the expected time of the clean, and that may give you the ability to shift some work around and give that person another job because they only need 3 hours and not 4. It may also mean that you can understand, hey, this job is supposed to take 4 hours. Corinne consistently gets it done in 2.5, but we also consistently get complaints from guests. So it can be used as a training tool to then go back to that guest, or sorry, to that housekeeper or that inspector or whoever the person is, and say, hey, listen, this is why it's supposed to take this long, and here's what we're hearing. Let's talk about how we can improve that moving forward. The next thing that's coming up as it pertains to transparency, and something I alluded to when we jumped over to this slide, was also the ability to know where your people are. We talked about this earlier. Things happen, things change. You may get a last minute that's for the same day, and your team may already be allotted and workload is already set. And you need to recalibrate that. Can't think of the right word there. We'll use recalibrate. You need to recalibrate that, and you need to know where your team is, how much of their workload they have done, and who you can assign to go to that property that needs to be cleaned last minute. So we are going to be releasing, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek. It's just a very basic image, but a little sneak peek of what that's going to look like and how we're going to utilize the GPS so that you can actually see that. These last two, I want to make sure that we have time to go through the system and also leave it open for questions. So we're going to talk about these last couple pretty quickly here, but most of the time managers say their homeowners only know about 20% of what the work they're doing is. And sometimes when I share that stat, people look around the room and they say, gosh, that's a high number. So it's probably even less than that in reality. And what you guys do is so important, right? What you're doing is that boots on the ground management of this house. You're the asset manager. You are their voice locally in the market. And it's so important that you can speak to that and say, hey, you know what? We are your asset manager, and we know exactly what's going on with your homes. So we know what's in there, whether it's makes and models and how old a dishwasher is. We can share with you easily exactly what's been done. And we can say, this is what we did at your property over the course of the last 6 months. Being able to also say to them, listen, I know that it's very important that the bedding in the master bedroom look this certain way when you come in. We're going to make sure that every time you come back to your house, it's done that way. You're building rapport, you're building trust. And that's so important in this industry, to make sure that people actually, what they are expecting to get is what they're actually receiving. And that's really hard. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to deliver on. Everyone has best intentions, but that's probably one of the things that falls because it's hard to execute on. So do what you say, and we're going to give you some tools to actually be able to do that and to look like heroes to your clients, your owner clients rather. Last piece of that is preventative maintenance. Again, you guys are doing this. You know what needs to be done to make sure that these homes run well. The last thing you want is the AC to go out in the middle of a summer in Florida. So you want to be doing the appropriate preventative maintenance for these homes. Sometimes, though, it's harder to execute on because you're kind of running from memory or a bunch of Excel documents. So within the system, you can actually proactively set up recurring tasks to get that work done and to be able to know what units haven't we done this in. Similarly, you can bulk create tasks. So let's say that you have a storm coming and you need to pull patio furniture in. You could add that task to all of your properties, and then you'd be able to really quickly see exactly where that task has not yet been completed. And that gives you some very easy ways to do that without having to try to manage it offline through a bunch of different documents. Um, again, we know owner reporting is super important, and so that's going to be one of the things that we focus on later this year in Q3 is just continued improvements to that, so that you have some different ways to communicate. And then we kind of talk a little bit about messaging as well, because that goes into how you communicate. Messaging, again, this is a separate product. At Breezeway, we have our safety product, we have our messaging product, and we have our operations product. So messaging is a tool that will allow you to communicate via SMS with your guests and with your homeowners. Through automated communication. So being able to say, hey, pre-stay, I want to 2 days before you arrive, I want to send you this message. A day after you arrive, I want to send you this, asking if everything's okay, if it meets your expectations, and then give you a way to respond to me without having to download an app or search for my phone number or send me an email. This is really, it's non-invasive. It allows them to have a way to access you. Everybody's got their phone. Everybody has got that. Whether they're at the beach, they've got the phone to take photos or read their book. They can easily send you a note if they find something that's going wrong while they're there in their unit. So this is super important, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we actually get into the system. But messaging about your in-stay or pre-stay or post-stay, as well as giving them updates about the work that's being done. And then also bulk messaging. So perhaps an elevator is going out, or the water is going to be shut off in a particular condo building, and you want to tell everybody that's there so that they're aware this is going to happen. You can do that through the bulk messaging feature. And the next thing we're working on for messaging is actually going to be gap night messaging. So if you have got a open night, either directly before or directly after this guest reservation, you could send them a note and let them stay perhaps at a discounted rate and book an additional night on their stay. So that's going to be really exciting. We're really pleased about how that can impact how that can impact our clients. I've just popped over to the actual website, and I want to walk you through this. So one thing that I would say here is that I've got a bunch of tabs open. We're going to dig through these. We would be more than happy to show you the product at any time and answer any specific questions that you have. So on this on the page with this presentation, there's also going to be some contact information. So if as you're going through you have any questions, of course you can ask them here, but you can also send them to us after the fact, and we'd be happy to answer those for you. So here on the schedule, just wanted to touch very quickly. This is your property schedule. This is going to be all of your units. And then we're seeing the reservations again coming over from your PMS. So as you've got reservations, those are updating every hour, as we mentioned earlier. You've also got all of these colored blocks. This is the work that's being done. I do just want to point out very quickly this workflow. So you all have processes that you follow on an arrival, departure, same day turn. And so whatever that process is, as we set up your account in Breezeway, we're gonna recreate that as a workflow. And then what that means is that when the inspection is done by Kelsey, it's gonna tell Clean B that they can go in to do the clean. So there is that, it reduces the need for somebody to call you and say, I'm done with the inspection, for you to call Clean B Cleaners and say, you can go clean now. That's all going to happen automatically through the system. We're going to automatically schedule the appropriate work. It's going to get placed onto the calendar. And then you can utilize our user planning view. This is just another view of the schedule, which has all of your people down the left-hand side. And these are all of the jobs that are unassigned. You'll see how long the job is supposed to take. And this is actually just a simple drag and drop feature. So I can move these jobs around and start to assign them out to people as necessary. Now, one thing I will say is that Breezeway offers this kind of middle ground between it's not scheduled and it's been shared with the housekeeper, the inspector, the maintenance tech. And that's what we call drafts. And so you'll see here, all of these jobs are in drafts. So as I'm making changes and I'm deciding, hey, actually, Amy's not going to do anchors away, I'm going to put that down to Andy. They're not getting a bunch of notifications to say, hey, this changed. Nope, now you have this. It's all being done in a draft mode. And then once you're happy with it, you would schedule it, commit it, and that would communicate it out to the user about what they need to do. Now, what they need to do and making sure that we're doing and handling recurring repeatable tasks is all being done via checklist. So this is our standard departure clean. Here's some of the things that need to be done. What's pretty unique about this is that you create one checklist. It multiplies based off of the number of bedrooms and bathrooms in the house. When you go through a property for the first time, you can say, well, this kitchen doesn't have a microwave. And then moving forward, this is going to be customized and personalized to that particular property so that if there is no microwave, we don't ask you that again. And that becomes really useful when you think about things like showers in half baths. You don't need to clean the shower every time if there's no shower. Sleeper sofas versus couches, those things that you have different activities that need to happen if it is one or the other. And so by being able to customize these checklists, you don't have to create individual versions of this for every house that you do. Now, of course, you can have multiple types of checklists based off of the different work that you're doing, but you can have the same one applied to every property and it will then multiply accordingly. But again, we talked about meeting those owners' expectations and making sure that the owner knows exactly what they need to do, that your team knows exactly what the owner expects to be done at their property. You can do that through our property specific requirements. So this is saying that at One Sullivan, we have these unique requirements. These are special to this particular property. Every time we assign a departure clean, these are the things that need to be done. And so we can supplement our standard work with the special requests from the homeowner. And that means, again, that homeowner who has a particular way they want the pillows to be placed can actually have that completed every time someone's in their home. Now, I'm going to take my chances. I'm not going to take my chances, rather. I've been able to go from the deck to the web without breaking anything. So I'm not gonna push it and try to go to our mobile app, but I do want to show this to you. I mentioned earlier, you're gonna get a sneak peek here. This is a prototype of Breezeway's app so that you can see it. And the reason that I'm showing you this is because I want to show you how, if you do not, let's say you're an admin or a supervisor in the system, and you drive by a house and you realize that there's something wrong, you can, when this functionality is out, and if you are a Breezeway customer and you're watching this here in April, this is coming in a couple of weeks. So this is a little bit of a sneak peek for you. It's coming very soon. But I could say, hey, I need to create a new issue. You can select the property that issue is happening at. You can give it a title, give it a description. You can actually select exactly where that's happening. Now, this is really important because one of the challenges in a general work order system is that you've got to sift through a lot of stuff to see exactly what's been done. So by selecting and associating this issue with the water heater, it's going to make it really easy for me to then go back and see what's been done there in the future. I can also take photos, so I can actually either pull from my camera roll or take new pictures. And then I have two options. If I'm someone who doesn't know who's going to go fix this water leak, I can simply report the issue. That's going to kick an alert to the maintenance manager to say, hey, there's this issue that needs to be completed. If I, though, am the person who can assign it, and bear with me while I just add these back in again. If I am the person and I know that I want John to go and do that, I can actually schedule that. So this is going to show me what's going on at this property. I can see I've got a reservation in here today through the 12th. I can see that there's a clean scheduled. There's 2 cleans scheduled here. And then I could say, all right, I want to add this and we're going to do this now. So we're going to do this job at 11:25, and then I want to assign this to somebody. So I can, again, either assign it to myself or I can assign it to an individual person, and I can finish that. And that person who I assigned the job to has now received a notification, and they know they need to go and fix the water heater at this property. Pretty easy, pretty clean, and makes it really nice to be able to dispatch work directly from the field. Now, once that work is dispatched and the work is being done, you also need to be able to see what's going on. So you're going to have your dashboard, and this is going to give you the ability to monitor and view what's happening at any point in the day. You can see previous comments. You can see that this clean is in progress. I can see that there are comments. I can also see an issue's been reported. I can know how long until the next day. I can actually see what was most recently completed at this property. So I like to talk about this as your air traffic control view of what's going on. And again, if I'm going through here, I can then add comments and speak directly to my team through this dashboard or any other page in the system. Once that's done, again, I'm going to be able to come in. This page is, I pulled this up so you can see how you can track assets, makes, models, serial numbers, upload photos and documents as well. And all of this work is captured under your property profile so that you can very easily track that and see it. And most of the time when we talk to folks who are utilizing this functionality within the system, they're really reducing the number of site visits they're doing to just get information about that property before they can send somebody out to do work. So capturing that is super important. Every task that you complete within Breezeway is going to generate a report. This is important as we start to think about sort of that owner communication and making sure that owners are knowing what you're doing. This report branded for you is going to give me a summary, include any issues that we found, any property specific, any template work that was done, photos that were taken. That all is going to be aggregated, and then it can either be downloaded as a PDF and shared, or you can copy the link and share it with that homeowner. You can also use these reports as you think about disputing any additional charges that you may have. You have you have photos of how of extra cleans that were needed, et cetera. So you can use this for a variety of reasons. But one of the big reasons is being able to communicate with your homeowners about the work that's been done. And last but not least, so we're almost finished here. We've given you a lot of information, and hopefully some of these are things that you can think about how this would impact your business. I do just want to talk a little bit about that messaging component. We're seeing a lot of people really take advantage of this. In fact, we're seeing it not only from the property manager side, but from the guest side. I think the average response that we were seeing with these messages that were going out were about 26%. So 1 in 4 people are responding to any message that you send. And so when you start thinking about your automated messages, you can message and create this to go out pre-arrival, after they've arrived, pre-departure and post-departure, customized to your message and the property that the guest is staying at. All of these messages are coming from a local number that's been provisioned for you guys. So this removes the need for one person to be managing that conversation and give visibility into the whole team through this conversation inbox of exactly what's going on, all of the conversations. And in fact, if a guest writes in with an issue, you can even choose to send updates to that guest about the message that they've just responded to. So if you've got somebody who really seems like they want to be regularly updated about the progress, you could subscribe them so that they're getting messages. We do have after hour messages. So if somebody is reaching out and you're closed, they'll get an automatic response. And we have that bulk messages. So, hey, the elevator is going to be out from 2 to 4 today. We're choosing everybody that's in-house during these dates, and we want to send that to them. And then I can choose to send it either now or to send it at a later date. So again, giving me the ability to really monitor who's going to receive these, when they're going to receive them. And this, again, because of those integrations with the PMS companies, doesn't require you to upload a list. They can actually do that very easily through that connection to the reservation software. So we know exactly where those guests are and what their stay dates are and can send those messages out. So I've talked at you guys for about 45 minutes. I appreciate you all taking the time to learn a little bit more about Breezeway. We at Breezeway really believe that operations is an integral part of your business. And I think now, given the global health crisis that we're in, that holds true more so than ever. I think that when people start to travel, and undoubtedly they will travel, vacation is to take control of that. They're going to provide a safe space for a lot of people. And cleanliness and the safety of those rentals is going to be really, really important. So, whether you're using Breezeway, whether you're thinking of using Breezeway, whether you have a system that you're happy with, I think that whatever you need to do to buckle down and really get this working very cleanly and streamlined is going to be important, because this is going to be what separates successful man, I think, moving forward. And so, again, if you are using a different system, or you've got some manual processes that seem to be working for you, no problem. We hope that you saw something. I guess I thought that you saw something in here that you can take back to the way that you run your business. And I just really appreciate everybody taking the time to learn a little bit more about Breezeway. Connie, I think we want to open it up for a few questions. We have any questions?
Yeah, and it looks like if you have questions after this, or if you're listening to this later on after it was recorded and you do have questions, there will be an email address on the page, as well as a phone number for you to get in touch with someone at Breezeway, and they can maybe message Corinne to get back with you, or one of their other team members. But Corinne, that was awesome, and we really appreciate you being on here and taking your time to do this today.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. We're so grateful for everything that VR Mintel is doing for the industry, not only in this time, but always. And really looking forward to getting out personally and visiting some of you guys. I've been in quarantine now for about 25 days, and I am itching to travel. So I think that as soon as everybody gets to go ahead, this is going to be a good time. So to everybody who's listening now, stay safe, stay healthy, and to all those other folks, I look forward to seeing you, and look forward to having the opportunity to chat with you in at a future time.
Great. Thanks so much, Corinne.